gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, and ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content. And now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. So we're back. I'm back here with Kelly Sutliff because we left a little bit of a cliffhanger on the last episode. Let me try to recap this stuff. You marry this guy. It's a very quick courtship, and you're starting to see and I love that term, pink flags, okay? Because they're not really enough to put you to a full stop. They're just like kind of slows you down a little bit. And at last episode, where we ended things, you had found incriminating messages on one of his social media accounts. He threatened to kill himself, or there was violence going on here, and you had changed all the passwords to your safe, but removed your gun from the house just in case. Right. You come home from your friend's house or from your sister's house, giving the gun, and there he is, naked, with a wound on his head
and his arm. And again, it was the wrong way, so I knew in that moment it wasn't a suicide attempt, but he gets up into my face really close. And
Why is he naked?
I don't know. Well, I do know now. I didn't know at the time. It's because you can actually, and thank God I have all the evidence I have from that night. I had ADT cameras at the time, and the timestamp of me walking into the garage, pulling into the driveway and walking into the garage, I got my hands on his phone, thank God I did, after the domestic violence, and found in his phone a video where when that timestamp of me walking into the garage, he is filming himself naked in the mirror, basically telling me to go fuck myself. And it was right after that he gets into my face in the foyer and he says, "Thanks so much for always having the ID channel on, because now I'm going to make this look like you tried to murder me." And for 45 minutes, he physically assaulted me and did $63,000 of damage to my home. Now, mind you, I told you before, my home was in mint condition when I walked in. So within 45 minutes, he destroyed my home. And during that domestic violence, he threw my head through a sheetrock wall where I lost consciousness. Then he threw me into the bedside table where I once again lost consciousness. He strangled me 3 separate times that night. He held a military knife to my throat, and then he pried my mouth open and tried to force me to swallow a bottle of Xanax to try to get me to kill myself.
Ooh. Now, thinking back to that night, as this horrific beating is going on, you got to be thinking you're not surviving this.
Yeah, no. And I have to say, people always ask me is if there's anything I regret from that night. And there's one thing I do regret. It was the 3rd time that Chris was strangling me. And the way he would strangle me is he would put his forearm over my throat, and then he would hold down my legs with his knees. And he could see the 3rd time that I was trying to say something. So he lifted his forearm off my throat and he said, "What are you trying to say?" And I looked at him and I gasped and I said, "Just kill me already." And he laughed and he put his forearm back over my throat and he said, "Not yet. You're going to watch me first." And what he meant was, you're going to watch me destroy your home, and then I'm going to kill you.
So he didn't destroy. Did he do the damage to the house when you were out? Or
no,
he did it in front of you.
He was doing it as he was intermittently beating the shit out of me.
That's spite.
My house was in mint condition.
Plus, you just had you had everything just done
that day. And wouldn't you know, I found his text message right 5 minutes before he destroyed my house. He sent a text to my contractor thanking him for the beautiful work that he did on my house and hoping that I loved it. And 5 minutes later, he's attacking me and destroying me. Chris is very calculated. I think Chris planned this out, but I think what happened was when I took I think the plan, and I can't prove this, but I think the plan was Chris was going to kill me with a gun that I did not know that he had that was in the house. That was a exact match to the gun I had. But then when I took my gun out of the house, it was documented, there's no gun in the house. And I think that's when Chris went into crisis because his plan wasn't going to work anymore. And that's why even though parts of it are so calculated, other parts of it are completely a mess.
Interactions with sexual assault victims are on the rise. Yet training remains scarce.
Every day, someone finds the courage to say the words they've been holding in for years.
And every day, someone is standing on the other side of that moment. The question is,
Will they know what to do next?
trauma doesn't come with instructions. It doesn't look like the way we expect.
It doesn't respond to force. It responds to understanding.
Sherry Ulsip, survivor turned global trauma expert.
Kevin Donaldson, retired law enforcement leader and advocate for real change. Together, we bridge a gap most people never see.
We train officers. We educate communities.
We change how first responders listen, question, and lead. Because the first response can shape a lifetime.
This isn't a theory.
This is lived experience meeting leadership. And when compassion replaces confusion, healing begins.
Sherry Ulsup and Kevin Donaldson, changing the way we respond so survivors are heard.
So there's portions that I'm seeing in his behavior that are completely irrational.
Correct.
But then I'm seeing other portions that are completely rational and
Correct.
thoughtful.
Because I think without knowing it, I kept interrupting his plan all day long. And the other thing I was doing that I didn't know is I was poking a bear. Chris is a wolf in sheep's clothing. So when I was saying to him, I'm going to leave him, listen, we know that for domestic violence victims, the most dangerous time is when they are leaving. I didn't know I was in an abusive relationship until I was in an abusive relationship. So I think me telling him that, yeah, Chris, now I am leaving you. I really think it was I signed my death warrant.
Well, the funny thing is, my personal opinion from what I'm hearing from you is you just accelerated the domestic violence process.
Correct.
Okay, I think this was coming.
Absolutely.
This was coming down the road for maybe something smaller. But since you confronted him and you were ready you interrupted his plan, as you said.
Yep.
Which was long term.
Yep.
And that sort of threw him into, okay, well, I got to enact plan B.
Exactly. And I know that now from, talking with his exes who, Chris has been abusive to all of them in one way or another. Mine has been the worst because I think Chris is escalating. But that's Chris's kind of like MO. He's Prince Charming, and then all of a sudden the coercive control starts, and then the abuse starts. But like you just said, I found those messages. I escalated the abuse. That's why it went from 0 to 100. Normally his pattern is it's slower.
Had you not found those text messages, it would have been something else
Absolutely.
To enact that abuse.
It just would have happened more gradually.
Right. It would have been, as couples stay together for a long time, certain things get on their nerves and those things come up. So you got to do things like I do things. Just be an asshole in the beginning, and then
So we know what you're getting into.
You know what you're getting into.
Right.
Just never change.
Right.
To come out of nowhere like this, there's a psychotic break. There is somebody who seems to be pretty calm and calculated. To lose control like that is pretty bad. And if you think about it on a higher level, of course he's going to lose control because all that control he was building up has suddenly it's vanished.
Correct. And I don't know what it was, even though I told him, to just kill me already. When he told me he wanted me to watch him destroy my home, I don't know what, but something just lit a fire in me. And I was like, oh, no. I'm not going down without a fight. And it literally was in that moment that I was like, Yep. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of here alive and to get my dog out of here alive, because that dog, Chester, I don't have human children. My dogs are my children, and Chester was the love of my life, and Chris knew it. So at one point, when Chris stopped strangling me that third time, and he would strangle me just up until the point, he's military trained. He knows what he's doing. Just up until the point before I was probably, going to die. And he then went down into my kitchen, and I could hear him. That night, even to this day, visually, still is a little blurry, but auditory, man, I remember everything, and my auditory was so heightened that night. So I could hear him destroying my kitchen, and I knew that was the only time that I was going to be able to get out of the house without him knowing. And I didn't want him to know, because I knew if he knew I got out of the house, he'd kill my dog. So I quickly ran down the stairs because I couldn't find a phone. When I had a phone and tried to call 911, that's when Chris would grab the phone and strangle me. So at one point, he threw all the phones. What I didn't know then that I know now is one of my 911 calls actually went through. And actually, that's the phone call you hear in the beginning of Toxic. So I won't give it away, but you actually hear Chris intercept that 911 call. I didn't know that existed until a few years ago.
Did the cops show up?
So they did. And that's how they got there so fast. I thought it was because my neighbors called, which my neighbors did, but my call went through. So that's how they got there so fast. So when Chris was destroying my kitchen, I can't find a phone. I have no idea that 911 call went through. So I'm just thinking, I need to call the cops.
And he's still naked.
Of course. Yeah. Still naked.
You don't do heavy construction when you're naked, guys. Come on.
Right.
Come on.
So still naked, destroying my home, bleeding. He's also making the wound in his wrist deeper and deeper so he could smear blood all over the house. Because remember, he is setting the stage to make this look like I tried to attack him. So I run down the stairs, I find Chester, I hide Chester in the basement, and I book it out the front door. And again, you'll see all the Ring videos of this. I run to my neighbors. I'm banging on my neighbors. Thank God they're the most amazing people in the world. I just love them. I loved them before this, and I love them even more after this. They answer the door. They are horrified because I don't know what I look like. Chris had smeared purposely blood all over me, and I think I was bleeding myself too, obviously. But when I'm at my neighbor's house, I see Chris in my bay window smearing blood on the bay window. And then I see him start to go towards the basement. And that's where I hid Chester. And I start freaking out. And, you and I talked a little bit about this before, but there's parts of your story that you get emotional. This is one of the parts that I get emotional when I talk about my dogs.
Because it's not about you.
Right.
It's about something that you care for more than yourself almost.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I did. And I still to this day do. And I remember freaking out, saying to my neighbor, Frankie, he's going to kill the dog. He's going to kill the dog. And Frankie's like, you can't go back in that house. And I wiggled myself out of Frankie's arms. And Frank was like, I'm coming with you. And I'm like, no, he's going to kill you. And in that moment, I just book it back to the house, because I would be damned if I was going to let that man kill my dog. Now, I am not advocating for anyone to ever run back into a dangerous situation. I'm not. But for me, there was no choice. That dog saved my life multiple times, especially through the death of my parents. So there was no way I wasn't going to repay that favor. What I didn't know then that I know now is because my 911 call went through, even though my neighbors absolutely did call, the reason the police got there so fast was because my call went through. When I was running back into the house, the police were actually pulling up. So they saw me running back in, and that's how they got there so fast. And it, call it divine timing, divine intervention. I believe my parents, my uncle, they were there that night helping me get out alive. I ran through the front door, and my smart dog must have sat at the top step of the basement. So when Chris opened the basement door, Chester ran out. So when I ran in, Chester was right in front of me. I grabbed him, put him into my office, and then I just slammed my body against the basement door to barricade Chris down there. And, I looked to my right and I saw a flashlight and I knew it was the police. And I just started screaming, help me, help me. And they rushed in and grabbed me, took me obviously into another room.
Have you ever talked to the police about what their initial thoughts were?
The battles we fight are hard and taxing on the soul. Fighting a battle that seems impossible to win. The stressful calls that give us wounds that cannot be seen.
These moments leave scars. They leave dents. Sometimes we just need to sit and talk over coffee.
Finding a moment of peace in the comfort of decompression with those whom you share difficulties. Sharing moments with those who are the only ones who understand. Our peace comes in the quiet moments we can share with our brothers and sisters.
It's just a moment to sit, listen, and let it out. We may be dented, but we are not broken. The Suffering Podcast, Dented Ace Coffee, was created to bring the peace to the protectors. Dented Ace Coffee is a tribute to my brother Mike Falaise and all the others who couldn't find their peace. 100% of the proceeds will go directly to Dented Development Project so that we can begin to repair the dents caused by suffering in veterans, first responders, and their families. The Suffering Podcast's Dented Ace Coffee. Get yours today by visiting thesufferingpodcast.com.
Today, I am incredibly good friends with he's retired, the retired detective on my case and his family. I see him monthly.
Because that's how you're pulling some stuff out of my life, because that was the night of my shooting. It was a domestic. The guy was holding a gun to his ex-girlfriend's head.
Yeah.
When you get those calls as a cop and you show up, you don't know what's going on. All right? There is a high likelihood that you could be staging all of this in order to make him look guilty the same way he was trying to, and we don't know. We got to figure it out. We got to figure it out very quickly. The main thing is keep everybody safe. Keep everybody safe. Keep everybody
Right.
safe. But you don't know. You don't know.
Right.
So for them to go in there and get you out, they're potentially putting themselves in a dangerous situation.
Oh, yeah. And I remember saying to the police, and again, my memory is spotty with certain things. I remember saying to the one officer, and I was hysterical, obviously. And, Detective Littman, who is the detective I'm friends with today, he's retired now. But, he will tell you it's one of the worst crime scenes he's ever seen in his career. Multiple people in law enforcement and legal have told me it's the worst crime scene that they've ever seen.
The town that you live in, I won't say the town, but it is a ultra suburban, safe, nice town. It's one of those towns where you'd be like, stuff doesn't happen like this in town.
Yeah.
But
and
it
you
does.
can say the town. I'm very, the police, it's Hanover Township. I live in Whippany. The police in my town were incredible. I'm always so complimentary of them because Detective Littman saved my life, literally, that night. And he saved it I tell him all the time, you saved it multiple times thereafter because he was one of the only people that believed me always and encouraged me, where the prosecutor's office, not so much. He was my advocate. So, we can totally say the town. But, I remember saying, he's going to tell you that I did this. And I remember the officer getting down on his knees and looking at me and he goes, Kelly, it is so obvious you did not do any of this. And then I just remember sobbing because it was in that moment, I was so nervous, he was setting this up. But Chris was also, screaming, I did all of this. You hear it on the Ring videos. And what's interesting to hear on the Ring videos is when I run out of the house, you hear Chris destroying the house and he sounds like a demon. And then when the police come in, you hear Chris calm as a cucumber saying, I'm just really angry. And the police are like, yeah, clearly, buddy.
Put some clothes on now. I feel weird that I got to tell you that. But
Right.
I hate to keep focusing on that, but what? I'm still trying to figure out why he's naked.
Because maybe it's because he wanted to admire him. I mean,
put a pair of boxer shorts on, man.
Admire himself while he's filming that fuck you video to me. He never thought I'd find it. He never thought I was making it out alive that night. So obviously the crime scene investigators come in. I have to leave the house. They clean me up. I go home or I go to my friend's house to shower. She brings me back to the house because I had nothing. So I needed to get my purse. I needed to get some clothes because my house was inhabitable. I lived in a hotel for 2.5 months. So I come back and I find Chris's cell phone. And that opened up a whole nother can of worms. I really learned that I had no idea who I was married to. I also learned that, the reason I was so incredibly sick throughout my entire marriage with Chris is because I believed that Chris was drugging me to render me unconscious and sexually assaulting me in my sleep.
What was he drugging you with?
So the police confiscated some drugs in his closet, and what they believe he was drugging me with was a breast cancer medication or two. Apparently and I ended up reporting the sexual assault to the police and the evidence that I found in his phone of it. And that was a year-long investigation, and the prosecutor's office declined to press official charges because they said there just wasn't enough evidence. But Chris was drugging and raping me in my sleep. And all of the symptoms that I had, Detective Littman apparently asked multiple doctors, and they said, all the symptoms Kelly told you about, those drugs, if someone is taking them that shouldn't have been, will have.
I'm going to tell you an alarming statistic.
Mm-hmm.
When I go train police departments with my partner Sherry also, what we do is we teach trauma-informed training about sexual assault victims from survivors' perspectives. And one of the statistics that we throw out is out of 1,000 offenders, sexual assault offenders. I'll throw this statistic out to you because it's a common misconception. Out of 1,000, how many you think get convicted?
Oh, I know this. Maybe 5? Yeah. So
6.
I have
It's
to
6.
tell you, we didn't report, this is so sad to say, but I still stand by the decision. So the Morris County Prosecutor's Office was treating me so horribly. Now, my lawyers knew from the beginning that I was alleging, and they had seen the evidence I found in Chris's phone, that he was drugging and raping me.
Wait, he had video of him raping you?
So I didn't find the video of him raping me, but I found pictures, hundreds of pictures of me just sleeping, where you can tell I'm posed. There's also videos of him masturbating to me while I am passed out. But I had so many medical issues, such as like urinary tract infections and things like that during the course. And there were 2 instances that I remember where I woke up in the middle of the night and Chris was inside of me. And then I jumped up and he was like, "Oh my God, I thought you were awake. I didn't realize you were sleeping." And I freaked out, being like, "No, I was sleeping. Like, what the fuck?" So I took all the pictures I had and the video and whatnot, and my lawyers knew about it, but we all sat down at a meeting and made the group decision that because the prosecutor's office was treating me so terribly with just the domestic violence, that there was no way they were going to believe me when I came forward with, "Hey, this guy is drugging and raping me in my sleep." So we made the group decision early on that we weren't going to report it, but I have to tell you, I couldn't live with it. Even though I knew the statistics and I knew the evidence I had did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Chris was doing it. I mean, it made him look like there's really something wrong. I couldn't live with it because I said to myself, God forbid he does it to somebody else. At least there'll be a report that this happened before. So there was a year-long investigation. And like I said, they declined not to press charges. But you know what? I did that because I wanted it on record.
Some lawyers, and remember, prosecutor's office is all lawyers, some lawyers only win cases that are slam dunks. If you can think back, when did you start getting sick? Was it in the courtship or was it after you were married?
So actually, I was sick right when I met Chris. I had gone to Yacht Week in Croatia, and that was, a party fest.
Well, no, so I'm talking this sickness.
No, but it's important because I was sick when I met him. And I think that also attracted him because I think Chris has, again, I can't diagnose him, but I think, he has something potentially called somnophilia, which is, it's a kink for a lot of people when there's consent. Of course, I didn't consent. So that is when someone, gets off on, having sex with someone that's unconscious or sleeping.
Somnophilia. I have never heard that one. Holy cow.
Neither did I until it happened to me. And it's a consensual kink when you have someone that says, yes, you can do this to me when I'm sleeping. I never consented to it. I didn't know it was happening.
That's like one step away from necrophilia.
Yeah, it is. It's not something I'd be into consensually either. However, to each his own. To each his own. No judgment here.
No, we're going to judge people on that. No, it's okay. There's certain things
I'm a therapist. I don't do that.
There's certain things you can judge people on, and this might be something. Yeah, we're going to judge. We're going to judge. When you were during your courtship, did you ever remember feeling sick like this?
So I was sick when I met him, and then it evolved. I was getting these hives. I was on prednisone for our entire relationship. I would get these hives that were debilitating. I was actually diagnosed at one point with a very rare autoimmune disease. And I was getting headaches. I was in the hospital left and right when before this, I was never in the hospital. I was having biopsies done on my skin and whatnot. It was insane. At one point, my leg stopped working when I was walking up the stairs and I collapsed. Like, that's how sick I was.
I'm just wondering how far back this goes with this.
I think Chris started doing it when he moved in. So I think, I was sick when I met him, but then I remember kind of, end of October, beginning of November, that's when I got sicker and sicker and sicker. And I'll tell you the craziest part. Chris never really went to any doctor's appointments with me. He went to the hospital with me, I think, once, and never the doctor's appointments. He didn't even go to the doctor's appointment. I got a biopsy. But someone had gotten me an appointment with a very, very well-known rheumatologist in the city at the hospital for special surgery. That is the only doctor's appointment Chris went to with me. And this doctor basically was like, listen, there's something wrong with you. All these other doctors can't figure it out. I'm going to. And by the way, I'm the doctor that can get tests done other doctors can't get done and get it done through insurance. I remember in that appointment, Chris was sweating. And I looked at him and I'm like, what is wrong with you? And he's like, I just don't like hospitals. And I'm like, well, that's funny because you were just in a hospital a month ago when you had to have like a minor procedure. Do you know, since that doctor's appointment, I have never had another symptom ever again in my life. I think Chris realized this guy is going to figure out what I'm giving her and it's not supposed to be in her system. And he's going to say to her, are you taking this? And she's going to say no. And the only other person that lives with him.
This is not something you learned just when he met you. This is obviously something that he's been doing.
Well,
did you get any evidence from the previous relationships?
So interesting you should ask that. I am not the only one that believes that this has happened to them, both past and future after me.
Future?
Yeah.
These things don't go away. I don't care.
They don't.
They just don't go away. They're always going to be there.
And potentially get worse.
Right. Until one day somebody actually gets killed.
Well, that's what I said to the prosecutor's office.
Yeah. So you lived through this event, and this event is horrible. In my opinion, the legal process is equally as horrible.
It's 10 times worse.
You got to relive it every single time.
First of all, you're fighting to be believed.
How many times did you have to tell that? What you just told me, how many times did you have to tell that?
Quite a few times, but it was more so no one ever wanted to sit down with me except for Detective Littman and hear the whole story. The prosecutor's office never did. I felt like I was bothering the prosecutor's office. They treated me terribly. Even my lawyer said it, like they were treating me like I was the perpetrator. At one point, a month and a half after the domestic violence incident happened, Chris and his scumbag lawyer went to the prosecutor's office. It was a Friday around 5:00. And Chris had me red flagged. I am the first domestic violence victim in the state of New Jersey to have their gun taken away from them. And what Chris did is, I had my gun. I got into shooting right after my mom died. It was something that just,
Focus.
Yeah, exactly. And it was something for me and my dad to do together.
You know, the people don't realize with shooting is you have to erase and blank out your head.
Yes.
Yes.
And my dad would come and watch me. So it was like this thing I did with him. But and I maybe was taking lessons and whatnot for a year. I hadn't taken out my gun since, ever. Like, it just sat in my safe until September of 2019 when me and my best friend Christina decided to do like a girls' date and go shooting. So we went to the shooting lounge and or range, and we hired an instructor, and the instructor said, "Oh God, you have an illegal magazine. They recently just outlawed this magazine. You have 2 extra bullets. But listen, I don't want to leave you without any rounds or your magazine. So I'm going to take the 1 magazine and discard of it. But when you go home, tell your husband, have him get you a new magazine and deal with this one." So I'm like, okay. And he took the 2 extra rounds out. So it only had the 10 rounds in it. So I go home and I tell Chris, and he's like, "Oh God, yeah, I'll get rid of the magazine and get you a new one." Do you think he ever got rid of the magazine?
Of course not.
Nope. So a month and a half after the incident, he goes to the Morris County Prosecutor's Office and basically says, Kelly's a drug addict, she's an alcoholic, and she also has an illegal firearm. Wow. And what do?
This sounds oddly familiar.
They come and take my gun. And I'll tell you what, Kevin, I've been through a lot of trauma in my life, especially this domestic violence incident. That took the cake. That was probably the worst thing out of everything. Being domestically assaulted, almost murdered, being raped, drugged and raped. Taking away my gun was the most traumatizing fucking thing that happened to me in the course of that whole incident.
Especially in this world, this modern world where we're trying not to re-traumatize victims.
Right.
They did not do the proper job, and I can see that on the surface without even looking into it. Now, they have their reasons and stuff like this. It depends on, who's doing the case and how jaded they are and things like that, but they really kind of dropped the ball on this one. Not giving you a fair account in order to say, look, these things happened. Here's the evidence. Here you go. But the magazine, when they changed that law, that was a whole weird thing. So when you go through this legal process, people don't realize how stressful it is because you're reliving the event over and over and over again. Then lawyers get involved, and his lawyer has to be fair to him, his lawyer has a duty in order to defend him, try to get him off, try to whatever it is. But there just seems to be an overwhelming amount of evidence that they just can't deny.
But for whatever reason, the prosecutor did not like me. She didn't like me. And, I
already know who it is.
Yeah.
I do. I already know who it is.
Yeah. And I can make guesses as to why. I don't know the reason, but that's okay. I didn't like her either. And I think there was a few times where I felt like I gave it right back to her, and I'm glad I did. I still revel in some of those moments to this day.
So did it go to trial?
I wanted it to go to trial. I kept saying, put me on the damn stand. Like, he needs to be put away, because I kept saying, I was supposed to die that night. He's going to kill someone one day. And if you let him go, the system has blood on its hands. And I kept saying at the last minute, he's going to take the plea deal at the last minute. That's exactly what happened. At the 11th hour, Chris took the plea deal, and he pled guilty to aggravated assault by strangulation, criminal mischief, and possession of a deadly weapon for the knife that he held to my throat. And Chris was given 3 years probation. Chris never served a second in jail, not one.
The justice system is broken, and your case just confirms it for me. The guy who shot at me, tried to attempted murder on 2 police officers, got 6 years, did 4. This guy who tried to kill you, this guy Chris, who tried to kill you, got 3 years, didn't serve a day. I actually have friends. I'm friends with a lot of criminals, okay? But I have friends who, first-time nonviolent offenders for drug offenses, got 25 years, did 21.
Yeah.
Did 21 years.
Yep. And I remember I said
sat in the same seat as you.
Right. I remember I said that to the prosecutor. I said, you've got little Johnny Smith that's on his second, and that was when marijuana was illegal. Marijuana offense, and you're putting him in jail.
Because it's an easy win for them.
Like, it just, so, when they took my gun away, that's the first time I realized, oh, system isn't going to protect me.
No, the system is broken.
And then when Chris got his plea deal and he walked out of the courthouse, basically a free man, that's, when I realized, yeah, this system is so broken. And I'm very resilient. I remember even saying this to my lawyers, to the prosecutor. I said, if I've struggled through this legal shit, both in criminal and family, I said, you wonder why victims don't report? I said, why don't you start giving us a reason why the hell we would? Because I don't have one.
That's a very, very good point. If you get put through the ringer, and there's a certain portion, you seem like a very rational and intelligent woman, where I'm sure there's certain things in your head saying, okay, this is going to be a difficult process. This is, you're not trying to sugarcoat this stuff. It's not going to be an easy walk in the park. This is going to be tough. I'm going to have to tell this stuff all the time. I'm going to have to relive this stuff. I'm going to have to deal with these emotional scars, because physical scars, they heal.
Oh, right.
But emotional scars, they hang around much longer. So you're going to have to heal. You're going to have to deal with all this stuff. So I'm sure you were prepared for most of it, but to the extent, you can't prepare for it.
Right. And again, the worst part is I grew up thinking the system is, there to protect you. Yeah. And it was just anything but. And that was the most traumatic thing to me. I felt like I wasn't just fighting my abuser. I was fighting for a system to believe me and to value my life and that it was worth protecting. And it just didn't.
So now you're living this life post. It's done. Did he ever come back? Did he ever?
Well, stalking was horrific. And that kind of, I guess, brings me to why I'm doing what I'm doing a little bit today. So the stalking, when I moved back into my house, I moved back about 2.5 months after the incident. The stalking was horrific, to the point the police had deer cameras up at my house. And everyone kept saying, we know he's stalking you. Like we think we have, or we know we've got his car on here on video, and we've got his mom's. And then I had all these videos because my house is Fort Knox, even more so now to this day. But even then, I had a private investigator that put up all these cameras and whatnot. So I had videos of him driving, pulling in my driveway, revving the engine, pulling out. But the system was like, and I get it, but still was. So, yeah, we think it's him, but we can't prove that it's him behind the wheel. Mm. And we couldn't get a plate. But even if we did get a plate, like we don't know it's him behind the wheel. And I said, well, what the fuck do you want me to do?
They actually can. They actually can. So if he had a cell phone with him, that's a tracker.
Right. But you know what? As someone once said to me, that's a little bit above the prosecutor's office pay grade.
Yeah. You know what? You spend all this money.
I might be pissing off a lot of people with this podcast, but I don't care because it's the truth.
If they screwed up, then let's own it.
They could have worked a lot harder on my case to put Chris behind bars, and they made the decision not to. Whether or not it's because it's a little above their pay grade or they just didn't like me, I don't care. They screwed my case.
Now you have ripple effects and you have aftershocks of all this stuff. Now, any guy that you date, any guy that comes into your life is going to have to do time for Chris's crime, in your mind. I would say you're a sociopath if you didn't put up some sort of guard in front of you.
Oh, I do. And, listen, I dated someone after this. He turned out to not be who I thought he was. Not abusive, but certainly not honest. I like being in my home alone with my dogs.
You are always going to have that thing over your shoulder saying, hey, listen, this sounds too good to be true.
Right.
And that's a shame, too, because somebody really great could come into your life and be the right person for you, but because of the echoes from your past, now you're stuck in that echo chamber, and the chances of getting out are kind of slim. I mean, you're doing a lot of good stuff.
I am. And that, that's where I am. I am so, someone said to me I forget who it was, but someone said to me the other day, like, if you could take everything back with what you went through, would you? You know what? I wouldn't. And do you want to know why? It's because what I'm doing today, so because of the stalking, it got so bad and they took away my gun that someone said to me, I think you need a protection dog. And I was ignorant at the time. I didn't know, that normal people could have that, right? I thought it was just police, military. And that's where I jumped online. I found Bobby Gurla up at Metro Canine Academy in Randolph, New Jersey. And I called him and I said, hey, listen, I think my soon-to-be ex-husband's going to kill me. I don't know if I need a dog. Here's a video of what my house looked like. He called me back immediately after watching it, and he said, this is the worst. I've been in this business for 35 years. This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't want you living in that house alone, and I don't even know you. You need to come up, and we're getting you a dog. And this is the other part where I get emotional because I lost Stella recently. That's where I got my first protection dog, Stella. And I always tell this story when I talk about Stella. When I first met her up at Metro, she sat down next to me. And at the time, she wasn't a lovey dog, like she has a job to do. And a stranger, a guy, started to approach us. And she just leaned against my leg and put her paw over my ankle. And it was like in that moment, she was like, I got you. Like, it's going to be okay. And bringing her home was the turning point in my life. That's when I really started to heal. She breathed life into me again. I smiled again. I started to leave the house because I wasn't leaving the house, even to just take her for a walk. I owe it to her. The way I describe it is my dogs gave me a reason to get up in the morning, specifically Stella, especially after, Chester died, until I became my own reason to get up in the morning. And Stella not only gave me physical safety, but emotionally healing as well. So I wouldn't take back what happened to me because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. And what I'm doing today is in October of 2024, we officially launched my nonprofit, Kelly's Canines, Tales of Courage. And that is where we provide trained protection dogs to survivors of domestic violence at no cost to them. And the way we do that is through two pathways. The placement pathway, where we give you a completely trained protection dog and the survivor joins in to learn how to handle their dog. And this past January of 2026, we realized after our first year or so operating that a lot of survivors got dogs because of their situations or already have dogs, so don't necessarily want another one. So now what we do is we have a partner training program. And that is where if you're a survivor of domestic violence, you fill out our application online and we will evaluate your dog. And if your dog meets the criteria to be trained in protection work, the nonprofit will pay the initial cost for that dog to be trained in protection work.
I guarantee my dog does not fit the criteria. I will guarantee
No,
you.
if it's hiding from a chipmunk, I'm sorry, Kev, it's not.
Yeah, my dog, listen, I love my dog, but my dog has got nothing protection. There's not a protective bone in her body.
Yeah.
Now, since you've done these big time media things, has Chris, is he still stalking? It's probably easier to stalk you because he could just turn on the TV.
So I think I know. And I've been told that, yes, he follows everything online. Does he come by the house? I don't think so. I don't know. He'd be stupid. He'd be real stupid, too. I almost think, people were very torn at first when I decided, because really doing the show was the first time I showed Chris's face or used his real name.
I'm surprised he didn't sue.
Well, how could he sue when everything I'm saying is completely true? I think a lawyer would be stupid to take that case on. There is not one thing that I have said that I cannot back up with 100% handheld evidence.
And think about all the things you cannot back up with handheld evidence.
Right.
That's the scary part. It's, yes, what we know is horrific, but what you don't know is actually even more horrific. What was his plans? What did he have? What else was going on that you didn't see?
Exactly. I think me speaking out, I think it scared him.
Yeah. Well, he's still got a life to live.
At the end of the day, guess who has the power now? He might have started with it, but I ended with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You are 100% correct because you're the epitome of what this show is about. This show is about, how you overcome trauma, how you take your power back, how you start owning your damage. And one of the things that really hit me hard when you said if people ask you, would you have changed anything? No, I wouldn't, because Kelly Sutliff would not be Kelly Sutliff without this incident. You know, you wouldn't be this strong person. You wouldn't be this resilient person. Now, I'm pretty sure you can overcome anything.
Yes. And like I said, like Kelly's Canines, like, this is my passion. I believe I was put on this earth to do what I'm doing. And I now have 3 of my own personal protection dogs. And I work with Bobby and survivors and these dogs every day. And I'm truly doing what I was put on this earth to do. So I wouldn't take it back, you know, for that reason.
I don't know if you're a woman of faith, but I'm a big believer that God always puts us in a position that we're supposed to be in. God put you, and before God crowns you, they don't give you a crown. They give you pain. They give you suffering.
Yeah.
They give you all these things,
Right.
because there's holes in your personality that need to be filled
Yeah.
before you reach that next level. So pain and suffering is an absolutely essential part of your story, and without it, you wouldn't. You know, I know personally, okay, and I have 100% definitive proof that you have given at least one person hope who is going through a similar situation, and you know this person, it's a mutual friend of ours. You have given them hope that this can be overcome, that you can beat this. So there's value in, and I'm sure she's one of hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands that you have reached with your story. I know that for a fact. So if you think about that, and I don't know about you, I don't think you're trying to reach the masses. I think you're trying to reach the one that needs it the most.
Yeah. 100%. I said from the beginning, if my story, you know, there was a few reasons why I spoke out. First, selfishly, because I gave myself the justice that I deserved, that the prosecutor's office didn't give me. Speaking out was my justice. I think what I have done far outweighs any jail time Chris could have done. I would have loved for him to go to jail, but you know what? He didn't. So now I got my justice this way. And I think there's far severe consequences by doing what I did for him. And the other thing was because if I could help just one person and show them that no matter how dark things can be, you know, there will be a light, and it might take some time to get there, but it will be there. So just hang in there.
So how can our audience find you? Okay,
Yes.
I follow you on Instagram. I love the dog video. So I'm a dog person,
Yeah.
so I'll always follow dogs. I spend hours watching dog videos on Instagram. So tell our audience where they can find you.
So you can find Kelly's Canines website at www.Kelly's Canines, and that's K9s.org. We are definitely taking applications for survivors. And listen, we are a nonprofit. We could always use donations. These dogs and this training is expensive. And the more money I have, the more money I can spend on helping survivors by giving them dogs and training their dogs. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm under @RealTalkWithKelly, and also Kelly's Canines, Tales of Courage.
So I this has been shocking, okay? Because the real true evil in this world doesn't come with anger, doesn't approach you with anger. It always comes with smiles and charm.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what happened to you. Now, as we spoke about a little bit earlier, a couple minutes earlier, what you went through is essential. And I always believe pain and suffering is an essential thing in this world. It's the greatest teacher that you could ever have, because you will learn lessons from your bad beats and your failures and things that have gone wrong to you and your trauma, better lessons than you can learn in any book, in any college, in any higher education situation. So we're coming to the end of this thing here, and I always ask the same question at the end. Your suffering has taught you things, and I know it's taught you things. And if it hasn't, what a wasted opportunity. So why don't you tell our audience what your suffering has taught you?
So I think my suffering has taught me that I'm a lot stronger than I always thought I was. And I'm a lot smarter than I always thought I was. And I think it's also taught me that, you know, I guess on the flip side, that there's people out there that, don't always have good intentions. And I have to be more cautious that not everyone is as good as intended as I come into relationships, whether that be friendships or romantic relationships. But I think, the most important thing is that it taught me that no matter what, I can get through this and I will get through this. Because if you would have asked me, and now we're coming up on what? The 7-year anniversary. If you would have asked me 6.5 years ago if I would be sitting here with you today talking about what I went through, I would have laughed. and yet here I am. So that's what it's taught me, is that you don't necessarily know what the future looks like, but it can be more beautiful and better than you could ever imagine.
If you have the strength to just hold on.
Exactly.
And that's what HOPE is, right? That's the
Exactly.
acronym. Hold on, pain ends.
Right.
So, Kelly, I can't thank you enough for bearing your soul in here. I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm glad you lived through it, because I do believe that there are victims and survivors out there, such as yourself, that need your experience, they need your help, and they certainly do need dogs. That's 100%.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. This was amazing. And what you're doing is incredible. Thank you.
Well, we tried, just like you're trying.
Thanks.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Domestic Violence, Part 2 with Kelly Sutliff. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Quality of life is everything. Family is not always defined by blood. Look out for pink flags. Listen to your gut. Evil comes with smiles and charms, but most importantly, we are much stronger than we think we are. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Clapper, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow The Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.